there are several reasons as to why electability should trump over your own principles. Because we need to be strategic when we're trying to vote for a better change. But we must understand, in the instance that your principles do align, we think that you will vote for that individual anyway. But the debate isn't about that. This debate is about in the instances where both candidates, all the candidates uh, that are available are not principally aligned to your own personal belief. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do then? Do you vote for the lesser evil, regardless of whether or not the lesser evil candidate is principally aligned to your own personal political philosophy? Or do you hold on to your principles and opt into undi rosak, for example, or voting for politicians who are who don't have any chance of winning? So, firstly, let's respond to what came from side opposition. They told us that politics becomes a game of perception. Our first response to this is I don't see how things change under your side anyway, because firstly, politics is a game of perception anyway. You build your perception of whether or not what kind of individual you are. So we think that we don't understand why it's bad. But secondly, we don't understand why that trait of necessary because the coalition party will win anyway under your side of the house. So even if you undi rosa and you abstain for voting, for example, because you believe it's not no candidate is principally aligned to you, we think that at the end of the day, the ruling party, the parties that you don't want, you aren't principally aligned with, will win anyway, and we don't understand why that's good. Because sure, you abstain for voting because you think it's a symbol of you not believing in the democratic system of your country, but your BN party will win anyway because people will vote for them in anyway. So we don't see why that's good. But secondly, let's answer the key question in this debate. What's the strategic route for voters to do in order to obtain the change that you want? Because they would argue they would vote for purity of ideology, right? They would vote for purity of ideology. They would do whatever they can to be principally aligned with the politics. We don't think that this manifests as much. It manifests as they pointed out in real life, because we think you can never, for several reasons. A, there can never be a political representative that is completely principally aligned to you. So people are different with different political philosophy and different life experience and go through different education. Therefore, there can never be a political representative that is so principally aligned to you, and you have to adhere to that philosophy to a point where you don't vote for any of your own political representatives because you believe that none of them represent you. So how far are they under their side of the house is willing to go for their own principles? But secondly, even if there is, we don't think it's strategic for you to do that. Why so? Because politics currently becomes a game of you voting for the lesser evil. It's unfortunate, but we have to deal with the realistic circumstances of the world. Sure, in their world, when you have politicians who are principally aligned to you, we're okay with that. But in a world where you will never have a political representative that can represent you, you must be strategic with your vote. That's why you see under their side of the house, if you're so egoistic and you don't want to set aside your own principles and you abstain from voting, you allow people like Trump winning the election. How so? Because you abstain from voting because you want Bernie Sanders to win, but because of your principles and how strongly you hold on to them, you wouldn't let yourself let yourself vote for Hillary Clinton, for example. And because of you abstaining from that vote, a lot of the Democrats were unable to get Hillary to win, and that's why Trump was able to prosper in a world where people were unable to set aside their principles for once and do what is strategic for the country and vote for the lesser evil. Because under their side of the house, it's not like political representatives that are liberal, that are progressive will win, because we think that's unlikely anyway. Your majority rural areas will will vote them out of the election anyway. So we under that half they need to defend why are they okay with letting individuals like Trump or letting parties like BN who participate in corruption are likely to allow them to win. But before that, few eyes. Um, okay. Yeah.
So, like, seeing as the reason why individuals opt out of the democratic process is because more often than not they don't feel hopeful in the process. Why is it in your world individuals on the ground are incentivized to partake in the democratic process if you're giving them the lesser tools?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So in your world, there's like you still have individuals opting out of the democratic process because they don't believe in either of the candidates. Why are you more incentivized in your world to vote when these are the choices that you still give them?
Okay, so under outside the house, we support individuals voting what is strategic for them to get the change that they want. So obviously, when you see two candidates, like for example Hillary Clinton, and then you see Donald Trump, you are able to assess which is the lesser evil. For example, you can obviously see that Donald Trump is a xenophobic asshole. For example, from how he advocates for Muslim bans, how he advocates for terrible tax reforms that are terrible for poor people. So obviously you can assess that and see that, okay, maybe Hillary Clinton isn't completely principally aligned with me. Maybe she doesn't believe in my socialist values, or maybe she has Wall Street behind her back. But she is clearly the better. She clearly can win this election, and she clearly is the better candidate as opposed to Trump. And because of that, because of the strategic assessment you make of her electability, you vote for her instead of abstaining for vote from the vote. We think in order for their side to win this debate, they need to prove two things. First, why are you okay with letting individuals like Trump or letting parties who are corrupt, who have the control, the majority coalition, win anyway without you proving to us why is it less likely for you to get the politicians that you want under your side?
The opposition side assumes that at the point where there are no possible candidates that are like in adherence to their principle, because this is where the contentious debate comes in, that both of these candidates are like incompetent into ruling the country. Because under side government, we will posit to you that at the end of the day, that someone, and both of these popular candidates who are more likely to be the ruling party of that government, for instance, will govern that particular country. This debate then is about what is the strategic move for that particular voter within that country. What is the way? What is the path that they should take? So first, the principle. Firstly, I want to address on the clash on when it comes to the the contentious issue of principles, like how voting with principles can create the change that opposition really want. Because firstly, we said that the change that they the change when it comes to principles of these politicians can exist. It already exists in status quo. For instance, firstly, we have things like investigation or impeachment, or thirdly, we said that at the end of the day, if you're unpopular, people will not vote for you, because people will assess you through your manifestos and also your policies that you have already presented to your voters. Meaning that now the voters under our side of the house, because they don't agree with the identity of this or the caricature of these individuals, for instance, these candidates, they will look holistically towards this party and what are the economic benefits, for instance, they can get at the end of the day. These are the practical considerations that these voters should take, because at the end of the day, it impacts their life on a daily basis. Therefore, we say that a lot of changes can be done already in status quo, but it's about what are the practical benefit that you can get at the end of the day. So, on to my first clash, right? Why principles don't go so far as what opening opposition really want to posit you? Because we said that practical considerations, like under our side of the house, can trump over all of the practical consideration can trump over all the identity caricature of that person, for instance. We say that economic policies that affect you directly. We say that these voters under our side of us, as opposed to looking at the identity or caricature of this person, can now reasonably assess the manifestos and what these individuals promises, for instance, and help them accountable for the things that they promise. Meaning that if Trump, for instance, promised that there will be better healthcare for these individuals in the future, meaning that now these voters will hold them accountable for that, because if he doesn't do so, he will be voted out in the next term, for instance. Meaning that under our side of the house, practical considerations and safeguarding what will benefit you at the end of the day means that you can the roadmap into how you shape that form of government and how you want government to treat you will become significantly and much better under our side of the house as opposed to under their side of the house. So why principles then can't do this? Because realize at the point right now there's two different candidates, but at the and you chose to stick with your principles. It means that you don't have even the marginal of say, for instance, within that political decision of that country, because you chose something that really doesn't adhere to your principles, for instance, because you rather spoil your votes or do not vote or vote for a fringe candidate who probably unpopular and wouldn't win that election. Meaning that these individuals, for instance, like probably the disenfranchised minority, will probably not vote for anyone, for instance, because or go rogue and vote for Trump, like this happens in the past elections. Meaning that these individuals these voters led politicians like Trump to be in power and it backlashes towards their life, for instance. We said the electability, at least under our side of the house, is much better because now voters consider through manifestos and also policies, for instance. But lastly, thirdly, why under our side of the house we create better policy making and manifestos? Because see, now both of these politicians know that people are not voting them because of their caricature, but at least now these individuals know that they need to improve their manifestos. For instance, you can see in Malaysia where Pakatan Harapan constantly trying to list out a lot of economic benefits or like changes within the government to appease the voters, for instance. And Barisan Nasional also did the same. This is where now voters have to make practical considerations into what will benefit their country at the end of the day, as opposed to undi rosa, spoiling, which stands for spoiling your vote, which doesn't give you anything at the end of the day. We say this far better under our side of the house. But lastly, before I move on, closing, sure.
Let's assume that I'm a person in your society that believes in communist ideas. Can you tell me why it's meaningful for me to vote for a capitalist politician that does not reflect my ideas whatsoever?
Yeah, because see, you still exist within that government, for instance. Even though you agree with, even though you prefer these communist ideals, and you're governed the idea, we will be governed by ideals that you probably wouldn't agree with. This means that what impacts you at the end of the day is one that you should prioritize, because this affects not only you but also the people around you, your sisters, your mothers, your sons, or your children, for instance. We said that trumps the principle that you want to defend. But lastly, how under our house, in fact, we create politicians or even party lines that will improve their parties even better. Because realize that under both, we assume that probably these two candidates are probably corrupt or do not adhere to the principles that we like. But at least under us at the house, now that they see that people are voting for something that is objective, something is objective and practical for them, this means that they will try to improve how people see them. Because opposition claim that, oh guys, this is a game of perception. Exactly because of that under our house, this can also exist as well. Because now that candidate and also that party line would now want to improve how people see their party, for instance. At least the likelihood for changes and also benefit to be garnered under our house is better. Now these politicians will, or even their party lines, will assess their manifestos to which benefit the people even more. Under their house, it is this disenfranchised community that will be ruled out and also singled out because they don't have any say at all. We said at least under our house, we include the most of voices and tell the government what is the best for these individuals. Never been prouder to propose. Okay.
Democracy is a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. Democracy has to cater to any individuals or to many individuals as possible. And in this debate, we place our main priority on the sentiments of our people as they vote. We will be the first team to focus on where do we individually empower people as opposed to discussing about the democracy and political atmosphere. First and foremost, why are we different from the opening government? Principal justification on why we shouldn't arbitrate what a good form of democratic participation is. And the second point is the importance of making the sentiments known, which will not only benefit the society, but the country as well. And OG only told you how to best use your vote. Why are we very important? It's because we will explain the process to show how society will restructure vote based on principles, and secondly, we will explain why the right to vote is an indiscriminate right. My first argument is the principle of democracy. Why does everyone deserve right to vote based on what their personal beliefs are? Point is because they are direct beneficiaries of state and they pay tax monies trusting that the state will cater to them. The second point is they trade off a world of anarchy for democracy, and therefore they have a right to exercise their vote in whatever way they wish. The third point is, in principle, the state or any individual cannot decide what a good and bad vote is. And this is because every individual has a unique right to be a democratic participant in whatever way they choose or decide. The second point is, where do we maximize our democratic participation? The premise of argument is, a good democracy is one where ideally, where every individual partakes in the election process. And for example, if you get to prioritize your principle, you are more likely to vote or be able to vocal about your sentiments. And why is being vocal very, very important? This is because any society can only be ideal and they can only function optimally if everyone shares their sentiments and principles. And that is how we are known what type of society or the country that we should be. For example, either a conservation society that holds religious value within the state's legislation. The second point is that what happens when people vote based on electability? Now, the sentiments are unknown and people trade off the principles to prioritize which is lesser of two evils. For example, if you disagree that Hillary Clinton's liberal views, but you also disagree with Donald Trump's right-wing views, then you are able to express your desire for a centrist position. And for example, is like voting for the Green Party in the UK or even the independent candidates in the US. Our second point is, the change is unlikely and people live in systems that is bad for a prolonged time. Therefore, these people are unable to express their sentiments, and they would have, living in this point, they would have no choice, but they would have to vote between these two evils, in which we now have to prioritize these sentiments of the people, so that when they make their decision, this will lead to a better society and a better country that we live in. The third outcome is that less people would end up voting and they would not partake. They would not vote and they won't make their sentiments known. And without making their sentiments known, this is where we bring down and we diminish their hopes. We diminish their dreams. And with this point, these are the only ways that we can improvise the country. And these are the only ways that we can choose better leaders. And in that, this will not lead to people going for elections where they would have to force themselves to choose between either two leaders where they do not want to choose, but they have no choice. And at least we believe that in our world, we have more people voting based on our sentiments, and we have more people who live, and there are more people who happily encourage themselves to vote and who are not being forced to vote, or maybe tear their voting papers because they have no choice. Because they have no choice. Therefore, we believe that we win this debate.
Politics is about compromise. Compromise not just from voters who unfortunately must make tough decisions, but given that the burden of that, or the responsibility to make the country a better place is literally placed on their hands, means that they must make very tough decisions, but also compromise from political parties themselves, who under pressure, must restructure when they understand that certain voting blocks do not agree to the political agenda. But note that the pressure that comes on the side government will be non-existent when now your political parties knows that your non-voter, people who are very apathetic, are not actually viable voting blocks because they will never vote for you anyway. In my speech, my argument will directly clash with what CG had to say about moderation and which side would create maybe better centrist policies and laws. We think this happens better under our world. But before that, I have a couple of responses. Let's first talk about the main contention that I shared along the Gulf bench, because they wanted to say that under their side, there's better representation of the public sentiments and what they generally feel. What is odd is that the argument that came from CG is sort of non-contentious, because we actually agree that people have the right to choose who they want to choose who they would who better represents them, and if that means not voting, then they should have the right to do so. However, this debate is about whether or not letting them have that choice has led to more voter satisfaction and has led to better policies. We think that the idea that if you vote based on your own principles, you will create a better representation of the public sentiments is a very simplistic analysis of what representation means. Because your representation is contingent on the ability for your vote to translate to changes in politics. Meaning to say, you can only say that you are represented more if the laws and policies enacted actually represent your sentiments. If your party that you actually vote for actually materialize to become the ruling party. Because the chances of your fringe party being voted is literally non-existent, it means that you are less likely to be represented as a result of your decision. At this point, you need to choose a party that can win, but will represent you more on a scale. But the moment that you choose not to make that choice, means that the party that is further away from your principles will win. Because of that, under your world, allowing people that choice means that they are less likely to be represented. Let's take Ruby's example about these two capitalistic things, right? What doesn't change under both worlds is that you will never get a communist leader, but at least what you can do to be better represented is to choose a capitalist leader that has maybe some form of communist laws and policies enacted in them. That's when you see better representation and therefore a better satisfaction as a voter. Take a seat, right? Most are my rebuttals to be integrated into my arguments, right? We're going to tell you why moderation and the ability for big and very strong political parties to moderate their political agenda will become a lot less. Because in current status quo, the electability of a politician relies on a couple of things: how well they cater to the majority, or how well they cater to the specific voting blocks and regions. And we could see to what opening government had to say. It is also dependent on resources and the money they have for their campaigns, right? What does this mean? This means, firstly, most politicians already have a strong incentive to represent the public's principles. We're not saying that there is no problem to this, but we think that the problem isn't as bad as they want to paint it as. We see that this happened in America with Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders, all of which had very distinct principles and very distinct viewpoints, and because of that, people can easily choose who they want to do so. But we do agree that in some countries, let's say, that have there are large demographics that do not necessarily feel any candidate actually represents them, right? Here's a characterization that needs to be taken into account. Large political parties already have a large, loyal, and rich supporter base that goes irregardless of whether or not other people vote with them or not. That means regardless of what other voters do or do not do, BN still has a large following in Sabah and Sarawak. The opposition has still a strong following in the small in the strong regions that they represent most, right? As a result of this, two scenarios will happen. Firstly, your large overarching political parties feel less of an opposition to their own party or to their own ruling government. Note that government said that politicians are likely to change their stance because now they feel pressured. No, that is not true. The political agenda that these large political parties have already implemented is the same agenda that allowed them to get that large following. Changing that political agenda means that you hypothetically may or may not get the votes of other groups of people that don't like what you did in your years before this. But it also means that you lose your large following that felt very represented by your original political agenda that you had. Because of this, the political risk to completely restructure your political agenda is too large, and they would rather choose not to do so. Instead, what is more likely to happen? Politicians from big parties are less likely to see you as less likely to see apathetic voting blocks or voting blocks of minorities as a viable voting bloc to cater to. Under your world, Hillary Clinton would have never changed her stance on gay marriage or tried to appeal to black rights if she knew that these people won't vote for her because of their principles. That principally I am against her because she did not advocate for gay marriage before, that she was shown to be racist in other videos that she was in, right? What happens under our world is that big political parties will realize that if they do not cater to these groups of people who are apathetic or who would only vote for fringe parties, that means if these political parties realize that if they are unable to cater to them, they will lose them to an opposition team that is better off at catering them. What is the comparative? I think under your world, if the overwhelming narrative is principle and that people won't vote for you and that people won't vote for a particular politician because of what you did and said in the past, then there is no feeling of urgency to actually cater to these people. The harms are twofold. Firstly, vulnerable groups in society will never be supported by rich political parties. What Plupi wanted to say, what Ema wanted to say was that people will now you can vote and create centrist parties, but these centrist parties would always lose out from from lobbying, would always lose out on the money and resources that these big political parties already have. So even if you create centrist parties, they will never win the election. But secondly, you create more radical political parties, right? Because if they know that all you need to do is all they need to do to win is to cater to the radical voting bloc, because they know that for a fact that these groups of people will not vote for them based on their principle, then they won't feel the need to moderate. Under our world, radical political parties have the strong incentive to over time and slowly to moderate if they know that if they don't do so quickly, you will lose them to an opposition party that will be a lot faster in creating more moderate political agendas. I think under side government, you condemn people who are moderate or have very strong principles to only be represented by centrist parties that will never win the election and will never get the same amount of resources to enact any form of change. We would rather them try to change big political parties to cater to them.
Panel, I've never seen a member of opposition that was so dismissive to the kind of argumentation that came out from the previous speaker. Because while they wanted to say that they were engaging with our argumentation, they never took us at our best. They never understood the chunk of benefit that we're talking about from closing government. What did Emma tell you that was so important in closing government? Is that in a world where you force people to vote based on electability, when you force people to forego their own principles, it's the same world where individuals choose to do one of two things. Number one, remain silent about their sentiments and never share them in any atmosphere whatsoever. But secondarily, force them to forego their principles entirely and vote for things that does not make them happy. Closing government uniquely comes and tells you this benefit is important because it all falls back to why a democracy exists and why a democracy functions. It functions because we promise individuals that you have a right to exercise your ability to tell us what your ideal society is. It functions because insofar as every person voices and tells us their sentiments on why their kind of society should exist and goes out and votes, we are more able to grasp the kind of society that people need. That's why what Ima said about the kind of society that we have at the end of the day is so important. Because in a world where you're consistently forced to choose between two capitalist pigs as politicians, you never ever get a trend increase, or you never get a world where those capitalist individuals become more socialist. Because in that same world, the kind of political atmosphere literally coerces people to opt out of the process. That is literally why my BOI to Iman was so important. Because I told her the prerequisite to voting or to participating in the democracy democratic process is first and foremost having the belief, or at the very least knowing that there is some ability for me to see my semblance of ideals taking part or materializing in the nearest future. In a world where I'm consistently forced by a political party and a political process that's stagnated, is the same world where you'll see things like the same political parties, the same type of populism. You will never get it. At the very least, in our world, more people vote for the Green Party in the UK. More people vote for the Pirate Party in Germany. At least the sentiments are gauged, and we argue to you that in and of itself is a benefit that's beneficial to any democracy. Before I talk to you about the two questions that frame this debate on where do we recalibrate society best and where do we achieve the best form of democracy, where I'll tell you why the principles we talked about is most certainly not non-contentious, I'll take you through one.
All of your arguments rallying up enough people to have the same sentiment, or either A, elect your communist candidate, or B, support the vote enough to make a big statement. How can you achieve this when most people are supportive of the existing candidate?
Okay, cool. Now we don't need to tell you why individuals are more likely to rally support. We just argue to you and tell you why it's more beneficial for society. Let's talk about the two questions on like where do we recalibrate society and where do we achieve the best form of democracy. The first question of where do we recalibrate society directly contests the extension that came up from closing government on why we don't have any kind of change trends in our world to cater to the rising trends of individuals. Right? Firstly, to this premise is question, we already told you why the best society, the best democracy has to be one where people are cognizant and aware of the sentiments of people on the ground. We think you lose that benefit in their world, but let's assume something. Let's assume that in their world they have individuals that are able to talk about these sentiments. They never get it to the fullest chunk of benefit. Because let me tell you why individuals spoiling their votes is so important. More often than not, you find yourself in democracies where instances such as greed and corruption force individuals to vote between two parties. Like, for example, in a certain country like the one that we there are some instances where there are two parties, A and B, and there are no other parties that opt into. In these instances, why do we empower individuals best when they spoil their votes? Because we argue to you that there is possibly a trend for growth to include new parties, or the creation of new parties down the road when individuals are vocal about these sentiments. So maybe when Undi Rosa becomes such a big thing in the upcoming election, it's entirely possible that individuals realize that this kind of rebellion, this kind of the degree of dissatisfaction towards the existing bipartisan politics in this particular country is so bad to the point where we maybe need to create new parties. Whether or not this new party will be effective or not, will receive backlash, is a whole other debate. But at the very least, there is a trend analysis to prove to you that this creation of party can exist. Back to under our world, we have no idea as to why Hillary Clinton will take it upon herself to become altruistic and become more queer friendly when people don't literally vote or talk about these sentiments. They don't tell us why the sentiments exist in their world, right? At the very least, in our world, a queer person can be able to see a future or the ideal society they want when they don't vote, or when they vote based on the new party that possibly comes to fruition, right? But the most important question in this debate, which is not contentious, where do we achieve the best form of democracy? Because this debate has to talk about this, right? Opposition tells us that you have to employ a strategic decision. And as a person who is a participant of democracy, that is your right. Here's why what Ima told you in her speech is not non-contentious. Because she told you that as a participant of a democratic society, you have the right to vote in any way possible, and that means the best way that makes you feel happy because you have a right to do so. Because you will pay tax money. You believe that the state is one that provides to you. You have traded off an entire world of anarchy that you could have possibly benefited from to get this kind of democratic ability to opt into this democracy, which means that you are able to exercise your right to vote in whatever possible. But even if they think this is non-contentious, at the very least, under our world, you have more people being able to see the sentiments, you have more media and people talking about these sentiments, and as a result, also on top of that, when more people are incentivized to vote as a result of realizing that they can have hope for the kind of ideals that they have, and they are able to embrace these ideals, it's the same world where you numerically see this kind of sentiments during the election process. So what do I mean by this, right? So when the Green Party gets 17% of the votes in say 2016, and in 2017 when people vote based on their principles because they want to see a more environmentally friendly society, and then number rises from 19%, at the very least, if I were to go with opposition's logic, Hillary Clinton will now see these numbers, and as a result of realizing that people are voting based on their principles, will also want to become more economically friendly, or will also want to become more of a green party. Same concept applies for things like queer rights, or things and sentiments that can only arise from individuals voting based on their principles, not based on electability. Electability uniquely erases these sentiments and
provides you a society that is not ideal for individuals within this who are participants of this democracy, and as a result of this, you almost always end up like settling for a subpar society that does not make you happy. At the very least, in our world, we've proven to you why this system will recalibrate, why the individual sentiments on the ground is all unique, and why every individual in society has a principled right to exercise a vote that reflects what they see, what they believe the ideal society is. With all this said, proud to propose.
There are two issues that clashes in this debate. First one is on the principle. Government side said that what you should do as a voter who does not feel represented in politics in politics. Note that representation, firstly, people are more likely to talk about their principles under their side, and note that a first response to this is that they did not really explain why speaking out is actually is a mutually exclusive thing, and we think under our world, people can still say that the only reason I voted for Hillary Clinton is because she is a lot better than Donald Trump. But I don't. But I don't. But I don't think. No, sit down. But don't open with a lot of this set things. And secondly, what they did not prove is that why speaking out would lead to any changes, because even if they speak out, the ability for this no sit down, the ability for this good political party to be voted into power is minimal, which is also non-existent, and therefore there will be no laws that will be passed, and that will actually represent these sentiments according to what they actually want. And on a comparative, when people speak out and they also vote a lot. When people are able to speak out, they can also vote a large political party. And firstly, this also means that because you are seen as a viable voting bloc, political parties are more likely to cater to you when you know that you are giving these political parties votes. And secondly, these big political parties have have more resources to enact changes in their act. This the conclusion to this is that the benefits you want from speaking out is better if you vote for a big political party who are in a position to enact laws or have the resources to enact law. And the second issue to this is that they say political parties are incentivized to change their agenda when people vote on the principles itself. Firstly, we think that no, these people are minorities and small groups. They're to actually they're less likely to listen to these people. And like for example, Hillary Clinton would just not really care or cater to these minorities when she realized that when she sat down, when she realized that these people are not supporting her, and even if so, but she will still care if these people choose to vote for Trump. And Bernie Sanders, because they are more viable, competence.
Okay. When you vote according to the lesser evil, political partisanship becomes worse. There will be a rise of incompetent candidates, and parties have no incentives to change. How is this a better outcome?
We told you already, right? Even Katrina has told you already. By doing this, they are more likely to change because they are more incentivized to change because their main job is also to cater to people and listen to the minorities itself. They would not just go ahead with their own agenda without getting approvals from without actually catering to the public itself, because this would just make them lose more votes in the end. Yeah, and we think that this really harms vulnerable groups in society, and they will never be supported by rich political parties, and this just in the end increases more radical political parties as compared to with moderate parties, and in the end you may not also get the vote anymore, and the larger effect of it that they would just easily lose a large number of their followers, and as a result they will just lose votes. So if I move on, and if you like. No, sure, okay. Alright. So yeah. We think that the only we think that
Okay, fine. So in your world, I don't think you've sufficiently proved to us why there is an incentive for people to feel hopeful in the democratic process. Seeing as you're making people choose the lesser of two evils and seeing that the democracy has a function based on where I can get my form of vigilance. So I don't think you've proved to us why in your world there is an incentive for people to come out and vote when I don't see my ideal society reflected in the democratic process and I have to choose based on that.
I think they've completely dismissed our like Kat's whole argument is basically on how they think that this is they yeah, so